Alright, so in lesson 20 we're asked to create a side-scroller game. This is going to be a fairly long video because there's a lot of parts to this, and I'm going to go through all of it in this one video. So I'm not going to go over the game. You guys could try that on Bubble 2. I'm going to dive right into the coding, and the first thing we're asked to do is to make our background. And for this video's purpose, like I said, I'm just going to mimic, I'm going to recreate that game. So the game had a simple background of a blue sky, a white oval cloud, and a brown ground. You can make your background how you want, but I'm gonna sort of mimic what they created. So here's where we find the background comment. We're gonna go ahead and draw the ground and the background. I'm gonna start with the background color, and we're gonna use sky blue for that. Okay, sky blue. We're gonna then create the cloud. So to do that, I'm gonna create a white cloud. Use the fill block, and I'm gonna go over this part fairly quickly. I think at this point in lesson 20 we should be able to create this stuff. And we're gonna create an oval for the cloud. We could create a sprite if you want, but I'm just gonna create an oval. I'm gonna have it somewhat right here. Okay, and if we remember ellipses, the center of it is the location, so I'm going to do at 100, 100. And for the width and height, let's just go ahead and use a width of maybe 200 and a height of 125. Okay. Actually, let's make it a little smaller, maybe 175 and maybe just 75 for the height. Okay, something like that's fine. The ground's a little trickier. I'm going to show us how to do sort of what they had in mind. So they didn't use a simple rectangle. You certainly can, and that's probably what I suggest if you're struggling a bit with some of this. But I'm going to go ahead and do sort of what they did. And what they did was they used two ellipses, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So let's go and make the color. I forgot the exact color they used. I know it's not exactly brown, but I'm just going to use brown because I don't remember which color they used exactly. And we're going to have two ellipses, one right here and a second ellipse right here. Okay, and it's been a week since I've done it, so I probably should have reviewed that, but I'm just going to kind of go with what I think it is. So I'm going to have maybe one center, I don't know, right here at 100, 375. The width, let's go ahead and do, I don't know, 300, and the height, I don't know, 150. Let's see what that looks like. It's a little higher. Maybe I'll do just 100 for the height. And I'm going to do another one. So I have one at 100, 375. I'm going to have one at 300, 375. Same size. Okay, and we can sort of see the ground now, but we want to get rid of this black outline, and to do that we're going to just simply use the no stroke. Okay, so that's good enough for me. That's my background, my cloud, and my ground. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one. For number 4, we're creating our sprites. We're also going to be creating the properties for it, or selecting the properties for it, specifically the velocity and the scale if we're resizing anything. Again, they already have the frog, mushroom, and fly for us. We don't have to do anything there. But if you want to have your own, you want to personalize your own game, then feel free to take some time to do that. Let's go ahead and start by creating the, let's do the player first. And the player is going to be a frog, so I'm going to call it variable frog. For now, I'm just going to leave it at the default 200, 200, but I'll move in a minute. We're going to set the animation. And there's already a draw sprite down here, so we don't need to create another draw sprite tab. Okay, so we have the frog. We're going to go ahead and create the fly, which is the target, and the obstacle. Where is it? So let's create the fly. Okay, and maybe again, maybe you want your fly a little smaller. I think it's okay, but if we do, we could also set it right now. Maybe make it a little smaller if we want, or of course bigger. And then we're gonna go ahead and make the mushroom. Oops. Okay, one thing to note is that I did not create any movement yet. I'm going to do that in a second, but let's go and create our sprites where we want to be. I'm going to move my frog maybe down, I don't know, let's put it right here, 100, 350. Okay, the fly, let's raise it a little bit, 325. For the fly, I'm gonna, let's leave it at the same height actually, so at 200, but I'm gonna start the fly right here at the very end. So instead of 200, I'm gonna change the X coordinate to 400. Okay, and then the mushroom, I'm gonna align with the frog, so the Y is going to be 325, but I'm gonna create it, I'm actually gonna create it off the screen. Why don't we do that? So instead of even 350 or 400, I'm gonna go ahead and choose 450. Okay, so right now, even though it doesn't show, we do have a mushroom at 450. If we want to double check, we can add a watcher for the mushroom dot what was it, X. Okay, so right now the mushroom's at 450, and finally I'm going to create the velocity. I'm going to start moving the target and the obstacle, or the fly and the mushroom. So fly, I'm just going to choose -2 for the y, the X velocity on. Let's do maybe for the mushroom. Let's maybe do 2 and 5/10. Okay, so they're going at different speeds. It does say the obstacle and target have to move at the same speed. I don't know if I agree with that, but I'm just going to go ahead and continue with our code. So we're done creating the sprites. Next we are going to, what are we doing next? Have the player control. So there's a lot of ways to do this, and we need to keep in mind we're far into the coding, but we don't know some more advanced stuff we're going to be learning in the next few lessons. But there's going to be 3 parts to this code. One part is jumping up when a key is pressed. Another part is going down when we reach the top. And then finally, when we get to the ground, when we get to ground level, we want to stop moving. We don't want to keep falling through the ground. I'm going to look for the jumping comment. Right, and we'll find it right here in my code. I'm going to go ahead and add a conditional that checks whether the player has pressed an up key. Okay, so when we hear conditionals, we're thinking the if statements. And again, we're doing the if a player presses the up key first. We're not going to do this part right now. We're just going to go by follow the directions. So if what? If the player has pressed the up key. So where is it? So if key went down and the up key went down, what do we want to happen? When that happens, we want to use the Y velocity or velocity Y property to start the frog sprite moving up. Okay, so we're gonna set the frog's Y velocity. Let's go ahead and set it to, I don't know, 2. Okay, so once I press up, oops, sorry, I made a common mistake, and let's take a look at what happened. We need to remember that if it's a positive number, the frog's actually going down, so this should be -2. Okay, so as soon as I press up, the frog goes up, but it keeps going up, and that's going to be the next thing we do. If the player reaches the top of the jump, we want to start moving down. So when the frog reaches the maximum height we want it to start moving down. So what we're going to do is we're going to test the sprite's Y property to check whether it's high enough. And the high enough part is really what we're going to be setting. So if, oops, let me move this down here. If the sprite's y property, so sprite.y, and we're talking about the frog. Oops, I should have used the math conditional. Well, if it reaches the top of the jump, so let's say that it goes over if frog.velocity y is greater than, sorry, not velocity y, frog.y. If its y coordinate or y position is greater than, I don't know, let's say 200, we want it to start going down, which means we want to set the y velocity to positive. And I'm just going to keep it simple and leave it at number 2, the same magnitude as the previous. Okay. Whoops. Same mistake I made before. Remember, we wanted to check if it's less than 200, not greater than 200. Okay. So frog.y is less than 200. So I'm going to press up, and when it reaches the top at 200, it starts going down. And that leads us to the final portion. We don't want that frog to fall through the ground. Okay, the ground for us is essentially where we set the frog to start off. The frog's y position, starting y position, is 325. So that's going to be what we set as the ground. So finally, we're going to set the condition if the frog's y position is greater than 325, frog.y is greater than 325. Well, what do we want to happen? We want the frog to stop moving up and down. Oops, we want it to stop moving. So I'm just going to set the y velocity to 0. Reset and run. I'm going to jump. It goes up to the top. It goes down, and when it hits the ground, it'll stop. And I can make it jump again if I wanted to. Alright. So that's the player control. I think that's one of the tougher parts of the program. We're going to now look at the looping. So what we want to happen is when the mushroom and when the fly gets to the left side of the screen, we want it to loop back to the right side again. So here we go. We're going to look for the code that says looping, the looping comment. And where was it? Right over here. If the obstacle has gone off the left-hand side of the screen, move it to the right-hand side of the screen. So I'm going to now add a conditional that checks the sprite's x property. And what are we checking for exactly? We're checking to see if it's moved off the screen. So as a reminder, the x coordinate is from 0 to 400. The grid is from 0 to 400. So if our obstacle or mushroom or our fly reaches zero, then it's on the very left side. So that's what I'm going to use for the condition. Okay, so the condition is if the, what am I doing first? The obstacle, which is the mushroom. If mushroom.x is less than 0, that's my condition. Well, what happens? We want the x position to reset to what it started with. You could change it a little bit. You can, as long as it's anywhere on the right side, really, that's what matters. For me, I'm just going to set the x position, mushroom.x. Let's go ahead and, I don't know, do 525. And let's add a watcher too to look at this. Okay, I'm going to reset and run it, and we're just looking at the mushroom for now. Okay, the mushroom's x property is decreasing, and then it resets once it's the left side, and it kind of keeps repeating that. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the fly now. If the fly's x position is less than 0, what do we want to reset it to? well, we're gonna go ahead and reset the fly.x to, again, I don't remember what it was, I'm gonna say 425. So they both are gonna reset. Okay, resets and resets. Okay, I think we're good with the looping. We're gonna now look at the interaction. So here, or in our sample game, when you touch the mushroom, it rotates and the health decreases. The player's health decreases when you touch the obstacle. When you touch the fly, which is the target, your score increases. So they have the variable set. Score is 0, health is 0. Now we're going to go ahead and use that now. And what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to erase the game over part. I don't think they actually asked you. They just kind of had that ready for us. I'm not going to put it back later either. There's no need to because it's already done for us. But so we could look at some of these values and test some of these values. I took it out for our video's demonstration. We're going to look for the sprite's interaction comments. If the player touches the obstacle, health goes down and the obstacle turns. Okay, I think this one's fairly easy, especially since we recently learned this. We're going to have a conditional, right? We hear the if, we think conditional. And, you know, it's kind of straightforward. We're testing to see if it's touching, so we're going to use the is touching block. And we're going to say, okay, if the frog is touching the mushroom, what do we want to happen? Well, we want the health to go down. This is a common mistake that people make. Some people say, okay, we want the health to go down, but let's just say 2 points. Once I run it, and I touch it, look at what happens to the health. It goes from 100 to -2. Okay, well, why is it not decreasing? Why isn't it going down by 2, but it's just changing 2? And the answer to that is because that's what we told it to happen, right? We said that if it touches, it's going to be -2. So how do I have it decrease by 2? And this is why we went over the counter pattern a long time ago before learning about the velocity block. We're going to be using that counter pattern. Okay, so we'll keep this, but on the right side I'm going to delete this. We're going to use the math and we're going to use the subtraction. Okay, so if the frog's touching the mushroom, we're going to say the health is going to be whatever the health previously was minus 2. Okay, so I'm going to reset and run it. And now, as long as you're touching it, it's going to go down by 2. We could change this. You could change the value if you want. You could have it like 1 or even 5/10 or something. We could change it so it resets the mushroom or something if we want. There's a lot of things we could change about it. I'm keeping things fairly simple. It does want us to turn the obstacle. There's 2 things you could do. And this is what I would suggest so that you don't keep losing points. You could create another animation. You could duplicate this, create another animation, rotate it. That way it'll be a separate variable and a separate sprite. And that way you won't lose the points, or you won't continuously lose the points. But again, keeping things simple. Once it touches, I'm going to have it rotate. And let's just say by 15 degrees. And then we're going to notice, okay, well, now it rotated. Okay. We want it to look the same, but it doesn't. So if we want to leave our code like this, we could set the beginning of the draw loop and have the rotation to be 0. That'll reset everything. Again, it's really up to you what you want to do with your game. It's your game. Have fun with it how you want to. Alright, that's the obstacle. On the other end of the spectrum, we want our score to go up when the frog touches the fly. So if we catch the fly, we want our score to go up. We're going to notice, hey, I don't have the score written up here yet. I haven't been told to do that yet. So how do I actually keep track to see if it's working? So that's one thing I want us to think about. But let's set this up. So if the frog is touching the fly, the score goes up and the fly resets. Okay, we know what to do now. We're gonna say score is going to be score plus, I don't know, let's just give 1 point each time. We want to reset the X position as well of the fly. Fly to X is going to be 425. Okay, so now I think my code is good. I'm trying to test it. Okay, I got the fly. Did it work? Did our score go up? And that's what they suggest to do here. Go ahead and add a watcher for, what was it? Score. Reset and run. Now I can test and see, okay, I touched the fly. Did I get a score? Yes, I did. If I do it again, does it go to 2? Yes, it does. So it looks like it's currently working. Alright. Finally, I know this is a long video, but finally, on number 8, we're going to create the scoreboard now. So right now the health is displayed, but the score is not. Let's create the scoreboard. I'm going to look for the scoreboard comment. I believe it's right here on the bottom. Right now it has the health meter. We want to add the score. So I'm going to start by adding the text. The first thing I'm going to do is just have it say score. Just like here, it said text. I'm going to have it say score. It's at 230, which is right here. I'm sorry, 280 and 30, which is around right here. Let's just have it right under it. So let's have it line up. So I'm going to have it at 280. Oops. 280. The font size is 20, so I'm going to maybe just put 30 under, so 280, 60. So we have score there, but we don't have the actual score yet. We just have the text string. So to add that, again, just mimic what's given to us. Follow the patterns we're given. I'm going to delete the quotations because I'm using a variable, just like in line 86 here. I'm going to put score, that's our variable, and I'm going to have it, again, line up at 350 and 60. Okay, now we have the scorecard. We can test our program, and the score is also showing. Okay, so that's me mimicking a lot of what the original program has. You know, feel free to do what you want to make the game yours. Change the sprites, change the speeds, make it as hard as you want, make it as easy as you want. But whatever you have done, click on share, copy that link, turn it in, share with your friends. But that's lesson 20.